Learning Objective 4 from Section 4.1 says to describe ways in which a graph for quantitative data can be misleading. What is wrong with the following graphs? Describe how the reader might misunderstand the information being portrayed. So this first graph gives us a histogram. Across the horizontal axis we have dollar sales, and the vertical axis gives us the number of customers who are spending those different amounts in dollar sales at the Science Museum. Look at the axes. The vertical axis starts at 50. It's important that a vertical axis start at 0, because if it starts somewhere else, then the values that we see in the heights of the bars are going to be misleading. So for example, the first bar goes up to 65, the second bar goes up to about 125. Notice that 125 is actually less than twice as much as 65. But the second bar looks like it's about 4 times as tall as the first bar. So by starting the vertical axis at a number that is not 0, we've made it so the differences between the heights of the bars looks bigger than it should, much bigger than it actually is. So here's a description of what's wrong with this graph. The vertical scale does not start at 0. Differences between dollar sales amounts look bigger than they really are. For example, the second bar looks about 4 times taller than the first bar, but it actually contains less than twice as many customers as the first bar. 125 about in the second bar versus about 65 in the first bar. Here's another example. In general, do you think race relations in the U.S. are blank? This survey asked people about how they felt about race relations in the U.S. And there were several options. There was a very good and a somewhat good and a very bad and a somewhat bad. So they combined all of the good answers together and got this brown time series chart for the different years that you can see across the horizontal axis. They combined the total bad answers into the black time series graph across the same number of years. Look though now at the vertical axis. It is consistent and it starts at 0, so it's okay. But the horizontal axis is very inconsistent. The dates along the horizontal axis start at September 1994, goes about a year later to October 1995, but you can see that the next two markings between September 2005 and April 2007 is much more than a year. It's about a year and a half. And then we have just about 8 months, and then we have just about 5 months, and so it's very inconsistent between these markings. If we look at this first span of values, maybe about here to here, from 994 up to about April 07, it looks quite volatile. But from September 94 to April 2007 is over 12 years. Now let's look at another span that goes from about January 2009 to November 2011. The width that I'm looking at in each of these sections is about the same, but the time that is different is the time that has passed in each of those sections is very different. It looks pretty consistent from January 2009 up to November 2011, but that's only less than 3 years. So let's write an explanation for what's wrong with this graph. The dates across the horizontal axis are inconsistent. Values appear volatile at the beginning of the time series plot from 994 to 407, but that covers 12 years and 7 months. Values appear fairly consistent from 109 to 1111, but that only covers 2 years and 10 months. We would expect there to be a lot more change in 12 years than we would see in just 2, almost 3 years. So by marking the horizontal axis at these inconsistent markings, the interpretation we're getting is wrong. It's misleading.